We're super excited today to welcome Shannon McGlynn from the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. Shannon works with the Nonpoint Source Pollution Program, and I'll let her introduce her role a little bit more. But just as a reminder, we're set up as a webinar today, so any questions you put in, just please put them in the questions bar, in the chat bar, and we'll go through those at the end of the presentation and give Shannon a chance to answer those questions. But with that, I'll turn it over to Shannon. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us today and for for accepting our invitation to present. We're excited to hear what you have to say.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Really before we dive in, I just want to definitely say thanks again, Mike, for the invitation, and a huge thank you to all of you for being here. I know schedules are busy, so we really appreciate the time, you taking the time to learn a little bit about what we do. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to take a few seconds just to appreciate the view on the slide. Okay. I personally would love to be sitting on one of those rocks right now, just kind of watching the water. Just always helps me kind of get a bit of clarity and centering before we get started. So I have been working with the Department of Environmental Management since I got out of school, about 18 years. Spent my first several years in the regulatory world handling construction stormwater, permitting, enforcement, compliance, as well as helping out with MS4 audits. But for the last decade, I've shifted focus into my current role as a senior environmental scientist with the Nonpoint Source Unit. Act as a project and grants manager, working directly with our local communities to improve, restore, and protect our waterways through the Section 319 program. And we're fortunate to coordinate this work and be funded through our friends at EPA. So, hold on. Sorry, guys. Hold on, let me get the presentation. Sorry, guys. Here we go. All right, moving on. Now, as we move into the heart of the discussion, I really wanted to start with the why we do what we do. And I'm not going to spend today kind of walking you through technical data or scientific charts. Instead, I really want to talk to you about the reality of what we see. While the statistics on this slide are older, they're several years old, the truth behind them hasn't changed. An overwhelming majority of us live, or as Americans, live within just 2 miles of that polluted lake, river, or stream. We've all seen these sites: red clay runoff, the urban litter, eroding banks. And when I look at these images, I don't just see non-point source pollution. I see the opportunity to make a change. It's a starting point. Allows us to kind of dive in, connect with our local waterways, our local communities, to reconnect with the waterways. So one of the other things, while this one looks negative, this is also why we do what we do. We want to protect our way of life. Alabama is blessed and absolutely bursting with life. When you look at the big picture, it's incredible. We are #1 in freshwater fish diversity. Think about it. Over 60% of all North American freshwater mussels are native to right here in our state. We have so many different species of aquatic life that you can't find anywhere else in the world. We truly live in a great environment. Okay. So, but did you know ADEM is more than a regulatory agency? Our mission is to assure for all citizens of the state a safe, healthful, and productive environment. And we currently have at least 8 programs that are purely focused on providing funding and support to our local communities. These programs are about voluntary partnerships, and we work directly with local stakeholders like you to make real positive changes in your environment. We're here to be your partners in making improvements happen on a collaborative, community-driven basis. So where did 319 come from? And this goes back, it's just a basic background, that in 1987, Clean Water Act was updated because we realized while regulating point sources was helping, it wasn't the whole story. So today, non-point source pollution, the stuff that travels across the landscapes, is actually causing the leading cause of impairment in our waterways. Think of stormwater as a traveler. As it moves across our roads, fields, and parking lots, it picks up everything in its path and deposits in our stream beds, often much faster and more forcefully than nature intended. When this amendment was added, it brought with it grant money that we're going to talk about today. So when that was added, it asked for us to, gave us money to do assessments and identify states' waterways that weren't meeting standards due to non-point source pollution. It asked us to identify what could be contributing to that and then identify BMPs that can control it. It also funds our program side of the budget. The non-point source management program is statewide. It really includes all stakeholders and people who live in the state, work in the state. If you're here, you know, you can impact it. So with that, like I said, we work to empower local entities to take ownership and implement BMPs to help restore the waterways in Alabama. But it also, through this grant funding made available through EPA, provides a project implementation side of the budget, which is half of the budget that we get, to put in real on the ground, boots on the ground work. So this is a reimbursement grant, and it does require matching funds. So next slide speaks to really our assessment piece. I have to give a huge shout out to our field operations and water quality groups. They are actually hitting the ground this coming Monday to start their monitoring period. It's an incredibly fast-paced season, and they do an amazing job with the resources that they have and are really experts in the field. To make sure we're hitting the right marks, we have basin teams that meet every year with these groups. This is where we really strategize and prioritize which streams need the most attention. It's really the bridge where we learn from each other and try to weave all of the different needs that we have into the best possible plan. We also take stakeholder requests and local concerns very seriously, discussing and prioritizing them as we build that roadmap for the year. I also want to touch on some of the way we make our decisions. We definitely look at out-of-house data to look at how our waterways are doing, but actual assessment decisions, we rely on our ADEM generated data. It just helps to ensure consistency. So what does it look like to kind of work with us? Well, I want to give you a broad overview of how my team and I plug into your projects. We work side by side with our grant sponsors and partners to develop and manage projects that fit into this 319 scope. From the very first spark of an idea to the final report, our staff is integrally involved. We really pride ourselves on clean, concise customer service. We are here to help navigate the process so we can get to that finish line and improve Alabama's waterways. On the financial side, we provide support through our Section 319 funds that come through our state partnership performance grant from EPA. Again, we have out of the project, 60% is that federally funded piece, and then 40% is that local piece. The great news here is it doesn't always have to be cash in hand. It can be in-kind services like volunteer hours, donated equipment use, or staff time, different things like that. So one of the things that is absolutely on the forefront of what we do is education and outreach. Most of our projects on both sides, program and project, have an educational component attached to them for a very specific reason. It's the best way for you and your neighbors to get involved and actively learn how to be better watershed stewards of it. And here is a practical tip. This community involvement typically is a large portion of that 40% match that we just talked about. Your time and your community's energy are literally valuable assets. As our staffing time, we don't just sit behind desks. We love to get out and plug in across the state wherever we can, whether that's presenting in technical meetings. Over here, you can see Cody at teaching water festivals. We've done different camps, hosting booths, library meets, you name it, we're probably somewhere near. Whether it's a formal presentation or hands-on activities with students, we want to be there. We believe that when people understand their water, they're much more likely to protect it. So if you have an event or group that needs to hear the story, reach out to us, let us know. This technology transfer, technical assistance. People often ask me what a typical day looks like in our unit, and the truth is there really isn't one. We do a multitude of different things and it always looks different. So from here, on these projects, you can see resources that have been created by the group. My colleague Jennifer Barker has created this coloring book for Keep Our Waters Clean and a litter initiative. We have different brochures that have been created through the department. We have resources about what Cody has done with our different water basins, story maps. We sit on several local and state boards throughout. I know, I'm a co-chair for the Mobile Bay NEP I sit on as a co-chair for Perdido and Pensacola Bay Estuary Program. Cody's on the Sweet Trails, and I think Jennifer is Friends of Alabama River. So there's things that we do across the state. I also sit in on the Soil and Erosion Control Partnership. That's there. One of the things I really want to point out is in this right corner, you see the annual report that's on our website. It really gives you a hands-on look of everything that we do throughout that past year, including our project status updates. So on the program side is mostly the money that we spend on ADEM, but there is money left over to do planning and educational components. This one right here is Alabama Watershed Stewards. The grant actually wrapped up a little while ago, but it was 3 phases. It's still being run through Alabama Cooperative Extension System, who developed it. And we had the opportunity to collaborate with that group. So when you're asking what is a Alabama Watershed Stewards Program, it's a statewide science-based education program designed to promote healthy waters, increase understanding of water quality, and provide the knowledge and tools needed to prevent non-point source pollution. It transforms concerned citizens into active stewards who can lead local conservation efforts. Our collaboration was with the Alabama Cooperative Extension System, and they are the engine behind this program's success. I mean, when we partnered with them, I knew it was going to be great. This also through Auburn University Water Resource Center, but they far exceeded the expectations that we were looking for. So from here, you can see that they had a blueprint for stewardship. This developed this comprehensive program in the handbook that serves as a guide for Alabamians to get involved in watershed protection. There's strategic trainings. They posted workshops across the state, teaching people why they should, most of the time if you're there, you already know, but why we value our waters, what that looks like, what non-point source pollution is, how you can get involved in your local groups. So there's also, there is also community planning. They facilitated watershed planning workshops. This really kind of gave a piece and a flavor of what watershed planning could be, asked communities to look at their what their water vision is and to try to start them thinking about the future. They created a digital toolbox with instructional videos that have like how to design your own rain garden, invasive plant removal, water macros, litter cleanups, live staking, and all the different things. They also created these educational articles because one thing's for sure, we don't all learn in the same way. So you have videos, you have the tactile that's directed towards like different things from homeowners associations and how they can get on board with stewardship protection, what you need to do about your septic tanks, and just a whole bunch of different things. But the program didn't just talk about it, it acted. So they also hosted creek and litter cleanups. They did a lot of workshops to teach people how to do it themselves, installed rain gardens, and partnered with Water Watch to certify new volunteer water quality monitors. So really the takeaway is through the grant, though the grant has concluded, it's still out there. The infrastructure and educated volunteer base created by ACES will protect waterways for years to come. So what else have we done with our program side of the budget? And really, these are a couple of other key points. One that's running right now is through Auburn University Stormwater in partnership with ALDOT, Alabama Stormwater Association, and then Barry Fagan is also part of it. So when you're looking at it, they're trying to develop a state program for construction stormwater for the QCPs to do inspection and installation and maintenance. So they're creating that state program. They're looking at what that's going to look like when they roll it out, the testing, what meets those federal standards. And, you know, I'll let them talk about that in a different setting. But another thing that we do with this program money is we deal with watershed management planning. And in this bottom corner of the grant, you can see Pepperell Branch in the city of Opelika took out one of our grants. It was led through, again, Extension, Auburn University Water Resource Center. They did a lot of the planning. They had watershed tours. You can see down there, Alabama Water Watch was heavily attended. There were different educational opportunities to go mark storm drains, learn about, you know, different watershed stewardship places, be involved in the project. We also funded, right now we're working with ACES as well on Morse Mill Creek. They're currently in the process of planning through that. I think there's another year left on that. So if you're in the Auburn area, check it out. We funded partial updates. Brogland River is one that we did in-house. So we do some of that in-house. Brogland River, and this is something to keep in your back pockets too, is that Brogland is partnered with the National Water Quality Initiative, which is a partnership with NRCS, and they do watershed assessments. So we were able to use some of their watershed assessment to write our watershed plan. Other things that can kind of plug into watershed planning include potentially FEMA's hazardous mitigation plan. They have things that meet some of the requirements, but then you have to go above and beyond it. Now, when you're thinking about a watershed management process, you're thinking really about this building of a roadmap, how you get from the problem I have to where I want to be. The first step is building those partnerships. That really is the foundation for success in anything. You're leveraging knowledge, you're leveraging resources, you're including people in the process. So that is gold. And then characterizing your watershed, you really have to know what you have to know where you want to go. Setting goals so you know that you're on common ground. This is what we are all what we're all moving towards. What are those steps that I need to get to those goals, SMART goals? And you design a plan. What are my milestones? How long is it going to take me? Who needs to be involved? What does a monitoring plan look like? What kind of education components do I need? And then you go through with your partners and you implement the plan. People always ask me, well, how do you make sure that plan doesn't sit on the shelf? My answer is, I do my part, but you also have a responsibility to take up your part. So it's active, it's an active stewardship. But once you get through implementing the plan, you have to go back and make adjustments because things may still have problems. You still have to go back and take care of it. In order to get funding for a project, you have to have an EPA 9-key element plan. These are the 9 keys. You have to identify causes and sources of pollution, load reductions, critical areas, management measures that can be put in place. How much money do you need? What kind of partners, projects, all of these things. They have to be in place in that plan for funding through ADEM. Now, can you have a watershed plan and still receive funding if it doesn't have these? Yes, just not with our program because money has strings. So in anything you do, I tell you, this one is eat that elephant one bite at a time. Sometimes you don't have to eat the whole elephant. You can only put in what you can put in. So you may only get a piece of the elephant, but do your part, and make sure you take tiny steps to get where you need to go. Show the success as you go. So here we're looking at, on this slide, it's a little older slide, but it still kind of holds true to our program. Our program was, especially in the beginning, and still has this connection, was highly agricultural related. Farmers are great stewards of land, so we worked a lot with the Soil and Water Conservation Districts, the USDA, to kind of come up with ways to educate what can be done in certain areas. We've put a lot of BMPs on the ground. With that, urban and hydro mod are really followed in a second capacity, and we'll kind of look at what that means. So with our grant, this kind of just follows the timeline, just information that you need to know. First off, for funding for our next grant year, we have priority submissions that start in July. I mean, you can submit applications whenever, and we'll work with you if we have back funding to fill that, or we'll work with you on the next year. But these funds on the project side, they target primarily non-point source impaired water bodies. They can use for protection of high quality waters, and EPA just changed our guidelines, so there are some leeway to also work in areas where there's drinking water. So there's the goal of incrementally improving water quality or being able to show that protection piece. You have to implement from that 9-key element plan. We have semi-annual reporting and an educational component usually required of each grant. Sometimes there are a few that are just BMP implementation, but most of them require that education component. You have to apply on the ground BMP. 70% of that federal money has to go towards on the ground work, which will generate those pollutant load reductions that are required by our grant. Again, the federal amount that you can request is going to be 60% of the total project, and then that 40% match can be in-kind funds or it could be cash money. People who can sponsor our grant are municipalities, nonprofits, universities, states and local government, and then soil and water conservation districts. But that's just the people who have the ability to have the grant management, they sponsor. You can still connect. Everybody connects to this puzzle piece. You can connect through like subcontracting different parts of it. It just means that you can't hold the grant. You can't be responsible for the grant management. So typically we have 2-year projects. These can be done in phases. If you need more money, it can come out of a different grant year. And again, it's a reimbursement grant. So what do these BMPs look like that have been put in? So from an agricultural standpoint, we run a lot like EQIP. We do for the actual on the ground implementation, it runs just like EQIP. Then it has the same ability to put down the same practices, do the same things. It runs right alongside it. The difference being that our grant works in a watershed, and EQIP within RCS runs in a county. So they run side by side. They can actually benefit each other from it. But when you look at these agricultural BMPs, these are just some that have been put in. Again, EQIP has a whole field of it, but it has to target the impairment. So here you've got dry stack that's covering over the manure piles, no-till grain drill. You have heavy use areas, waters, rotational grazing, exclusion fencing. You also have over here, they're changing their land use from a pasture to a forest. You can see where they planted trees. That one in the middle, that is a poultry freezer or mortality freezer. It identifies now as an incinerator. They're not using poultry freezers as much anymore, if ever, just with avian flu and all of that. It's more of an incinerator. So it identifies as an incinerator. You can see over here, you've got stream bank stabilization, you've got stream exclusion, and then really a good riparian and floodplain on the bottom. Urban is more of what I've been involved in, urban and hydromod. So from these standpoints, you have 2 of these are borrowed, I guess. You can see up in the top is Daphne's Stormwater Alley. That's actually a lot of like what we put in Joe's branch for step pools to handle stormwater management. So it's just a better picture and I liked it, so I put it in there. Next is a bioswale in Pell City. I'm not sure if that was one of ours. I took it from one of Jennifer's presentations. So it may be the city that put it in without 319, but we can put in things like it. The next one is Smart Yard. That was done in the Salgahatchee watershed, where I think they paid a certain amount and then the homeowner had to match it. But it really works with homeowners to put that stormwater, like different aesthetically pleasing and functional stormwater management features in their yard. You have live staking with Dr. E. Brantley, porous pavers from a farmer's market in Athens that Cody was working on. I think Mike recognizes this bioretention cell right here, and we'll talk about it going on in a little bit longer with Hickory Dickory Park in Auburn. You have this green roof bioretention going in at a elementary school. Other things, I love this picture on the left because that is Fairview Environmental Park in Montgomery. And one thing you won't know about it just by looking at this picture is that it was a puzzle piece. And a lot of people and partners were put in here. I'll say 3 different streams of ADEM funding went into this part from Brownsfields. Brownsfields was able to clean up the contaminated site. We went through with Nonpoint Source money and built the constructed stormwater wetland and also some signs. And then SRF came in with the infrastructure and low impact development, like of course pavers and different things like that. So there's a lot of money that went through there. EPA put in on this part. It's right next to the Civil Rights Trail, so the Park Service also put in. And then you had Montgomery, City of Montgomery was highly involved in this as well. And then there was a HUD development block grant. So, I mean, there's a lot, and a NIFLIT grant that went into this park. And it's just a great example of community coming together to build these things. You have porous asphalt, and then on the bottom is a constructed stormwater wetland that we put in Daphne. Or I should say Daphne put in Daphne through our funding. Hydro modification is actually one of my favorite things when it's done to see. So when you look at these pictures, you see devastation. This iconic photo in the top is Ashley Campbell, who then worked for the city of Daphne and has now moved on to Baldwin County, but sitting in this big gully with a lot of dirt and stormwater, or not stormwater, a lot of sediment and destruction. And so a lot of people might get stuck there, like this is horrible, but this is how it's going to stay. But no, it doesn't have to be that way. It can keep moving forward. So as you look, and money is put in, and of course, in the top, it was more than our money. The bottom is Morris Mill Creek in Lynette. That was funded through 319 and then the matching funds. So you can see regular urban areas where it's flashy, it's trashy, you know, it causes major devastation. And then you can see how those grant funds went in to correct the situation. I wanted to take a minute and talk about Dooley Creek watershed. This one was put in through funding before the oil spill. It was partnership funding, ALDOT, and everything like that. I'm going to see, of course, my technical difficulties today may bring other problems, but let me see if I can run this.
This is a severe head cut, which is involving severe erosion of a channel that is an unnamed tributary to Joe's Branch. As you can see, the site is experiencing tremendous erosion. What is going on in this channel? Can you tell? It's obviously eroding tremendously and causing siltation problems from here all the way to Mobile Bay. The head cut has resulted in this stream being placed on ADEM's 303D list, which is a list of impaired streams. And when a stream is impaired, what it means is it can't meet its use. And this stream is rated for fish and wildlife. It's so impaired and impacted by sediment that it cannot support fish and wildlife. We've grown so much that our land use has changed. We've gone from forested upland areas to developed commercial and residential areas, and we have a whole lot more stormwater that enters our channels at a faster pace. Not only will this restoration project address environmental issues, it addresses safety issues of the homes, the safety issue up on Highway 31. It addresses many issues.
So for those reasons, this was considered a priority, and the community got together to come up with ways to solve it.
A team of Mobile Bay National Estuary Program, Thompson Engineering, ADEM, ALDOT, Geological Survey, Alabama Department of Conservation, Natural Resources, the City of Daphne, the City of Spanish Fork, we're all working together. I think this is the first time I've ever had such awesome teamwork. We're coming up with a solution. And what that is a restoration and stormwater management for the area all around us.
So our primary goal here is to stabilize this.
All right, I'm going to move it just a little bit. just to show you the impact on the community. I would say go back and look at it if you want more information on the engineering in what was placed.
Including watersheds, aren't aligned and don't follow political boundaries. Mother Nature isn't aware of our political boundaries, and at the end of the day, we're left to deal with those ramifications and to address those issues. A great example is the Joe's Branch project. You had an issue that was originating in one community, downstream effects were in another community.
Joe's Branch starts in Spanish Fork. It runs down to that. It's very important for what we send downstream to our neighbors. Joe's Branch was unique because there were so many different entities that had to be involved to make this project move forward. And it came to be a great project simply by the different agencies getting involved and making things happen.
So it required a collaborative effort in order to address the segment of Joe's Branch that we've just completed. It could not have been done by one municipality alone.
Without the NEP, it wouldn't have come together. There were so many different agencies and so many different people that had to be put together.
Mobile Bay NEP was instrumental in spearheading efforts to put together an intergovernmental task force. Everyone recognized there was a problem, but it took leadership in order to bring all the necessary parties to the table in order to address the problem.
Joe's Branch was one example, but the county is full of examples of Joe's Branches. So we have to move forward and properly take care of these.
Although we've addressed one segment of one watershed, there's still a number of issues out there to be addressed. And we have a cumulative effect of development and a lack of recognition and addressing some of these stormwater issues. So we're going to have to continue this team approach. The only way to accomplish that is for us to work together. There's environmental impacts, both to the wildlife and fish habitats, as well as erosion, and even the loss of private property due to erosion, channelization, head cuts. The only way we're going to continue to solve these is to facilitate teamwork approach and a collaborative effort.
South Alabama is very much driven by the tourist industry. It's very important what we put in our waters, which eventually end up down in the southern part of the state. We have to manage the stormwater drainage issues that we all face every day.
So that was done. That was done in and around 2010. So you can see the community efforts that were really required and needed to achieve the success that they have in that watershed. And it didn't look, when they started, it was started through stakeholders who came to the table. They came to the table with different needs and wants and problems, and they found that common ground and how to move forward. It's a huge plan, but in 10 years they've updated it, but look at how much they've gotten done. As much when you're looking at Joe's Branch from what it looked like to what it is, there were detention ponds put in, there were protected stormwater wetlands, you had the step pools and stream stabilization. From that standpoint, they picked that, or I'm assuming that they picked that branch because it was a smaller branch, but this one also goes out to the bay and then straight out to Dolly Bay and then straight out to Mobile Bay. So one of the great things about that part of the watershed too is you can see we were able to delist that stream segment. And we're able to get a success story off of it. That doesn't usually happen in a lot of urban streams because you can't put it back. Like you can't put it back to a forested state. It's always right now going to be that urban component. But this took a lot of effort. And ADEM was a part of all, a lot of it. NIFWIF gets the major flagship. They put in $12 million. One thing you'll learn about this watershed, or what this watershed shows us, is that through planning, they had shovel-ready projects that, that planning piece had already gone through the scientific portion of it. They had good bang for your buck. They had identified and prioritized. They had stakeholder involvement and approval, and they had all come together. So when the oil spill happened, they had those shovel-ready projects and were able to get in on the front end with NIPWIF to get this taken care of, you know, get it moving. ADEM came in behind it. Do we have 12 million that we spent in it? No, but we're up there too. Probably a little over half of that spent probably in this watershed. But the ability here was able to capitalize on the fact that we could use the NIPWIF Gulf Benefit Fund to match our projects. And we leverage together and work together to get things done. There's a lot of different funding sources in here. But what does the ADEM 319 look like? We look paying for portions of the stream restoration. NIPWIF still paid for the other portions, CAP, you know, you're looking at county, city. There's a bunch of different funding sources that are in there. So you have the stream restoration, you have porous pavers that were put in. In the bottom was a walkway, and it was actually examples of porous paver, porous asphalt, porous concrete. They put in a boardwalk, and we were able to put signs on it through the boardwalk, went with this constructed stormwater wetland to give an educational component and piece. Up above here was another, it's probably more of a traditional or more engineered solution. This is engineered and infrastructure. It's got piping. We did not pay for the piping or anything like that because we can't pay for infrastructure. We pay for low impact development. So we ended up paying for some of this detention area before it hits that pipe and some of the stabilization around it. Over here is another constructed stormwater wetland that's up by the UT to Tallahassee piece. So it added a little bit of storage before all of the stormwater coming from the road entered into that restoration. Another example of what 319 has paid for, but I have to give credit where credit is due for the people who have put in for or have actually done the implementation of this project, and that's through Auburn Stormwater was our sponsor. The city of Auburn was huge. And I'm gonna go. I've got Mike's slide for his partners too that were on this project. But the one thing about this project is they did it in 2 months. When we originally had discussed and talked about, hey, we have maybe some extra money. You know, Auburn has a lot of stormwater management plans. Lee County does through it. So the plans were already in place. There were already things going on like Morris Mill Creek watershed management planning. We're like, can we highlight or, you know, maybe implement some portion of stormwater management in that area? Was there low impact development that could be put in? And the city and the university went together and collaborated and came up with what could be put in, what they could do, and bite off in 2 months. You know, I remember before we finished signing on the dotted line, I was like, Mike, we got 2 months. Are you sure? And he's like, I got this, you know, and through his students, his group, they did. I mean, and the city of Auburn as well went through, and the other partners to put this in. So you're looking at Hickory Dickory Park. They put in a lot of low impact development. You can see Rock Channel with step pools or check dams was put in on the side piece. There were 3 bioretention cells, vegetative channels, stream bank stabilization, cisterns, pollinator gardens were put in, permeable paths. Like, this is a lot of construction. And Mike told me as well, you know, that there were several hiccups when they went through that they weren't expecting, like piping, different things, I think in the slopes. So I think he probably spent most of his days, and his students spent most of their days out there, and it looks amazing. So when you go through, you can see what it looks like now and the impact that they've made through those bioretention cells. Those are the cisterns and the gardens that they put in. They also had that educational component where they did rain barrel workshops. I think it was 4, and I think they're still completing different workshops as well. But they educated, I think they said 161 people. There was, after the initial slow start, there was a ginormous response to wanting a rain barrel. I think they said they got up to 900 people that were interested. So that speaks a lot to what was being done there. Again, coordination with Auburn helped with facilitation, City of Auburn, and then the Auburn University also put them on and did the educational component. They gave out like electronic and then also regular brochures to educate what stormwater can do, rain gardens, rainwater harvesting. 116 rain barrels went in around Lee County. Then we had, they put in, I think it was 44 wetway stations to deal with the pathogen issue throughout the county as well. They're putting in very public places like parks, different areas, Chillicothe, Kiesel. And then I think there were 7 large cisterns that were placed again around the community. There was a lot of work and effort that they put in 2 months. I can't even. And for 2 months, look at all the partners that came to the table to make this happen. You're looking at all of these industry people on the right that helped with materials and things like that. Home Depot had a huge help with the rain barrels, from what I understand. And again, just amazing support. These are also from Mike and Auburn, but he labeled at our conference those successes and the challenges for the project. And as you can see, like the expanded community outreach through rain barrel workshops, they really touched on a lot of people for that education, that stewardship component. They improved the local waterway health, watershed health, and made lasting change. You had the implementation of LID practices at Hickory Dickory Park. Enhanced that public stream. It's very visual. There's a lot of ability to play through the park and really see what has gone on. There was a large amount of collaboration between partners, which was neat to see, and it really strengthened partnerships. So much so that, we're looking at what else can we do. Challenges, that was a really tight timeline. They got it done, but, impressive. Tight budgeting, there really wasn't room to move a whole lot of money. It was what it was. There were some delays in materials and rain barrels and stuff like that. So overall, just I put it in the success column. It's pretty great. And I'll let Mike in a minute if he wants to correct or come back with his own information. What else do we have? Well, this is another one that I wanted to highlight, which was 3 Mile Creek. Again, this is a huge watershed in Mobile. There's been a lot of work that has been done on it. So you're looking at the headwaters being where the University of South Alabama is. There's a huge lake that's silted in. You have the state docks, you have parts of Pritchard, parts of the county. There's just a lot. You have downtown Mobile. There's a lot Midtown. There's a lot that goes into this watershed. But they had a plan. They took pieces of the whole. So you've seen in Toolman Springs where they put in rain barrels to help cut. There's a lot of flooding, so they put in a lot through partnership with I think NEP and Alabama Power, and cut some of that stormwater that's going to the stream, and hopefully has impacted that area. And then you look at, they've come up with an invasive species, with these apple snails removal and plan. This is an educational board that they put together. The city of Mobile County have done a greenway, blueway trail that they've continually worked on. Some of that included what is it called? Stream restoration and different things. But what does that 319 portion look like? So this one is a little bit smaller in what we were able to do and who we've been able to work with. In the University of South Alabama, that was like a $46,000 project where they put in 5 infiltration swells where they had a huge amount of sediment issue. So you can see here what those swales look like, and you can see in several of them, or at least in this bottom corner, this bottom right corner, where it's catching some of that sediment. They did a great job. It was an impressive feat. Next, you'll see where they put in parking lot swales to handle some of the stormwater. There is a huge gully. Like you see the humanities lot on the left, and then you see that other line that's going in, which is a stormwater channel. There's a huge gully right there that runs into a stormwater pond. So they went through hoping to cut out some of that stormwater. They put in these bioswales, which were hugely effective. They were going to use our grant to put in the humanities lot and then the gamma lot. Well, there was some timing problems. And so the gamma lot didn't get done in the grant period. However, Go Mesa has come back through, and where the gully is and the stormwater pond, they're going to do more traditional engineering structure. And then they're also picking up the gamma parking lot. And that works for South really well because it didn't have a match component. So you have to do what's going to leverage your best resources and everything like that. So that still is in the works. One of the other things, and then I'm almost done, I promise, that we have going on, we're in waiting period, but is this component here of putting in or reestablishing a naturalized stream channel through Langham Park. It used to be just a straight, you can see that on the left top corner, just a straight, small concrete channel. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like in the next picture. But straight out, it collected water from the neighborhoods above it and then the road, but it just straight shot it. It's not, it wasn't beneficial for the stormwater. It didn't add any treatment. It was really kind of a risk hazard. But they decided, the city of Mobile decided that they wanted to make it more naturalized. So they're going to work on that stream enhancement, stream restoration project that you see on the right. No, I cannot pay for trail and pedestrian bridges or traditional sidewalks. So understand just the stream, some of that is through through the city. So they did a great job where it's at, but it's in holding pattern for this project right here, which they're doing they're dredging the lake and putting a lot of different things back. If you look in that bottom left corner, you can see a version. It's not the right one, but it's a version of what that concrete channel, stream channel will look like originally before it gets fixed. So, any questions?
Shannon, thank you so much for presenting. Thank you for the shout outs on our 319 project. That was cool to see. If anybody has questions, you can drop a question in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and I'll help moderate those. I guess, Shannon, while we wait on questions, question that I have is, where do you see the future of 319 program going? I know there's been a lot of conversations in the state legislature about curbing ADEM's power to have environmental regulations. Do we see any of that affecting the 319 program?
So, I mean, I think this last year kind of showed you never can tell, kind of in some cases what can happen. I feel pretty secure in the fact right now that we've gotten our funding. So I haven't really seen much change to our program, maybe a little bit of a decline, potentially coming in small, like some money, but it's still there. It's still ready to be used. And right now I'd say the future looks good. So we'll hope and we'll stick on that until we know different.
Well, it's great to hear. Let's see, I got a question came in. What is ADEM's biggest focus or need for the 319 program?
Watershed management plans, because that's really kind of the holdup, right? You have to have that plan to be able to implement. And a lot of times, just the way that everybody's timing goes, that plan holds it up. And so I would say, how do we get that piece implemented in more areas of the state?
Could you maybe describe a little bit what it takes to put together a plan, a watershed management plan?
So they look different, and it depends on like what area of the state and what water problems and resources, what the land use is and stuff like that. Because of doe leave, and I work on the coast, guys. There's more to the state, and I get that, but I just give you where I'm at. But they realize with doe leave that those plans are really intricate in prioritizing what can be put in and everything like that. They really bought in, and Restore paid for, Restore and NIPWIF paid for ones that are all like the intercoastal, or the coastal areas. And it's really helped from that standpoint, seeing that. But their plans down there can range from 150,000 to 350,000, depending on what the need is. Some of the other plans that we've looked at have paid $10,000 because it's more, I guess it's more rural with certain aspects. They were able to handle it without all of the engineering that was needed. But they really range in price and problems. So, and some of them, like I said, have been done in-house. And we're still trying to figure out ways that we can use those other resources and leverage that funding, like whether it's from FEMA's hazardous mitigation plans and grants or different funding sources to put together. Did that answer it?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of like the individual tasks that go into putting together a plan. I know there's some community engagement, so that would be part of that process. Is there monitoring or data that goes into? Is there any data collection that goes into determining what the needs are?
So
I guess those are the.
Yeah, it depends on who's funding the plan through Restore and everything like that. They had some data gathering, but that 9 key element really gives you that roadmap, because you have to look at what is the concern, like what are our pollution, non-point source and point source problems in that watershed. Where is it coming from? What are the critical areas? What BMPs can be placed? How long is it going to take? What's the monitoring that we need? And then what's the education and stakeholder component? And those are really led by those local grassroots, because they know their watershed, and how to hopefully get people in to, really engage in the process, because you need those local stakeholders to engage, to know where you can leverage funding, you can find those problems. So
One more question that's come in. Do you see more of a need in the construction stormwater space or more on the post-construction stormwater area?
isn't that funny? Isn't that something we've been talking about? With post-construction as well, I see it both. Construction, if not managed appropriately, can cause devastation. If it's managed appropriately, you might be able to minimize those impacts. But post-construction, depending on the way that it was looked at, if you took into account everything that's draining to it as opposed to the site as itself, that's one thing that our group has looked at, is trying to figure out more education towards post-construction, and that stormwater management from the runoff that's been created. So I would say it really is depending on the watershed, and it's both.
Well, I don't have any other questions, but Shannon, thank you so much for presenting today. We'll be sending out a link to the YouTube recording once it's posted here in a couple of days, and we'll also be sending out a PDH certificate for everybody that attended. So Shannon, again, thank you so much.